Hello. Hello, everyone. I was a couple of minutes late. Every once in a while, the chat bar doesn't load um, for some reason. But anyway, I got it this time. Yep. Okay, good. Verse of the Kesa. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. I wear the Tathagata's teaching, freeing all creations. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. I wear the Tathagata's teaching, freeing all creations. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. I wear the Tathagata's teaching, freeing all creations. Gata of Atonement. All evil karma ever committed by me since of old, on account of my beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance, born of my body, mouth, and thought, now I atone for it all. All evil karma ever committed by me since of old, on account of my beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance, born of my body, mouth, and thought, now I atone for it all. All evil karma ever committed by me since of old, on account of my beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance, born of my body, mouth, and thought, now I atone for it all. Fragrance of this incense invites the awakened mind to be present with us now. Fragrance of this incense fills our room, protects and guards our minds from wrong thinking. Fragrance of this incense unites us with precepts, concentration, and insight. We offer it for all beings. Homage to the Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. I go to the Buddha for guidance. I shall become one with the Buddha. I resolve to each day follow the way of life he laid down for us to walk and awaken to his supreme wisdom. I go to the Dharma for guidance. I shall become one with the Dharma. The gates of Dharma are manifold. I vow to enter them all. The goal of wisdom is ever beyond. I shall attain it. I go to the Sangha for guidance. I shall become one with the Sangha in the spirit of universal fellowship and as a member of the Sangha. I pledge myself to strive for the enlightenment of all beings. The Metta Sutta. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud and demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove. Wishing in gladness and in safety, may all beings be at ease. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. Even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upward to the skies and downward to the depths, outward and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will, whether standing or walking, sitting or lying down, free from drowsiness, one should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding. By not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into the world of suffering. Metta prayer. May I be happy and well. May no harm come to me. May I learn compassion. May all my friends, family, and those I love be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. May all those troubled in body, mind, and spirit be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. May all those who have hurt me in body, mind, and spirit be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. May all those I have hurt in body, mind, and spirit be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. May all my enemies be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. May all living beings be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. A 20-minute silent meditation. I'm going to time it with Insight Timer. So if you're muting your stuff so that you don't have to listen to the dogs or whatever happens here while you're meditating. I'll start at 20 minutes, starting now. Buddha nature pervades the whole universe, existing right here and now, and offering flowers, candles, and incense, hearing the Dharma and training the mind. Great merit is attained. We dedicate this merit to the great master Shakyamuni Buddha, the all-pervading and everlasting three treasures, to the 16 guardians and all protectors of the Dharma and their relations throughout space and time, to all ancestors of this Sangha and all beings in the Dharma world. May penetrating light dispel the darkness of ignorance, so that all karma be resolved and the mind flower bloom in eternal spring. May the Dharma body maintain strength and health, and years of life be lengthened for all teachers of this Sangha. May their vows be fully realized, and may they live in perfect peace with Buddha Dharma. We pray for those suffering from violence and those who grieve for them, for those living in oppression, for all who are imprisoned who should be free, for all refugees from violence, hunger, and catastrophe, man-made or natural. We pray for the health and well-being of those suffering from diseases of body, mind, or spirit, those working toward the healing of those afflictions, for those suffering from COVID-19 and those working to protect and treat them, and for all those grieving for those lost to this pandemic. May they be serene through all their troubles, and may we realize the enlightened way together. Sabe sata sadahantu avera sukha jivino katang punya phalang mayang sabe bhagi bhavantu te. May all beings always live happily, free from animosity. May all share in the blessings that spring from the good we have done. So, last week, hi, everybody. I hope you're all well. It's good to see so many of you here. Last week, I talked about these. I talked about cranes because it was almost Hiroshima Day. And somebody, Courtney, I think it was Courtney, posted a message afterward on the video that her 11-year-old was fascinated with this, and I think indicated that the child already knew about Sadako Sasaki, or about the legend that if you fold 1,000 cranes that you'll get your wish. I don't remember, but anyway, this 11-year-old was folding cranes, planning to do 1,000 of them. And so I said I would fold some in their honor, on their behalf. So I actually did about 4 of them at school at Stetson, and they're out by the we have a prayer tree in the entrance to Griffith Hall, and it's out by the prayer tree. But I did this one at home, so I'd have it to show. Anyway, I think that's very impressive that, if you fold 1,000 of these wishing for mindfulness and concentration and inner peace, you'll get it. I don't know about wishing for other things, but you'll get that. So before I do, I've got a reading I'm going to do, and then I'll talk. But before I do that, a couple of things. So first, if you've been planning to do the session, the 3-day plus retreat at White Sands, and you haven't registered yet, please do. With COVID and all that, I know there's a lot of uncertainty, and so we don't have a lot of registrations. We only have a handful. And if we don't get some more, we're probably going to end up canceling. And I get it. It's a time of great uncertainty. And so if you don't want to come, this is not pushing anybody to come. But if you're planning to come, you need to let me know so that we won't cancel it. And the other thing is, I hate to ask this, but I get it out of the way now. When we meet in person in DeLand, we have the offering bowl up on the altar, and it's real easy to remember to go up there and put a few bucks in the offering bowl. And it's a little harder when you're attending meetings online to remember to do that sort of thing. So, our overhead is real low, and not having to pay rent to the church. So we've always covered the rent for the church and the other, out-of-pocket expenses. So things like the website hosting and the meetup account and that kind of stuff. And expenses if we have an event or we do food for something and that kind of thing. I don't take personal expenses out of that account, the Volusia Buddhist Fellowship account. But with COVID, that hasn't been coming in to the degree to which it had. And it's been a year and a half now. And we've gotten to the point now where the bank account is drawn down to where now it's starting to cost to have a bank account. They're taking service fees out because it's fallen below that level, that minimum level that keeps it free. So because, the web hosting bills come due and the meetup account bills come due, and I'm paying for the Zoom meetings because I don't want to be limited to 45-minute meetings, which is what you get for the free account. So if you've been donating, thank you. And don't do any more than you've been doing. But if you haven't been, and if you've been meaning to, this is a good time to do that. And if you didn't know how, you can go to the Volusia Buddhist Fellowship website, and there's a place where you can make a donation, and whatever you do will be welcome. Anyway, that's the last I'm going to say about that, because I don't like doing that. I don't like watching the bank account get drawn down just because we have a bank account either. So this, I think I quoted from this book last week, Essential Chan Buddhism, The Character and Spirit of Chinese Zen by Chan Master Guozhan. And this is just a poem. It's just a short poem, but it spoke to me, so I marked it. So I'll share it with you now. It's called Sky Mind. The sky can accommodate anything. Birds cut through the sky or a plane. The sky comes back. It is as it is, effortless, whole. Volcanoes erupt, forests burned. The sky is not burned. Nothing added, taken away. Boundless and vast, tornadoes, hurricanes, typhoons, planets collide. The sky accommodates. Sun and moon, the countless stars, bodhisattva of the great earth, bodhisattva of sky, widen our reach to embrace and put our arms around. There's something really special about looking at the sky. Anyway, I think, if you've been inside all day at your desk or whatever, and you go outside and you suddenly look up and there's this big sky, and maybe it's blue or maybe it's gray, maybe it's got clouds, whatever it is, there's this big sky, and it's over us all. It's over me right now. If you're watching me live, it's over you right now. If you're watching me later, it's still over you, right? In Koyo Kabose's book, Bright Dawn, he talks about a time when his son was away at college and had gone through some tough stuff. And the letter that he wrote, and he had written written home and was sharing his feelings. And Koyo wrote back to him. And he said, go out and look at the sky. You and I were under the same sky, sharing the same place, the same sky. Wherever you are, it's uniting the two of us. But what the Chan master is talking about here, I think, is the sky mind. He's talking about having a mind like that, a mind like the sky. There's a Zen koan or a Zen story. It talks about whether or not birds leave a trace in the sky when they fly through it. And if your mind is like the sky, sometimes it's cloudy, sometimes it's sunny. Sometimes, things come up and they move through it. And they don't have to leave traces. You don't have to hold on to anything. The sky never holds on to anything. Things actually arise in the sky. And the sky, depending on what you define as the sky, meteorological events or whatever, the big open space overhead, it always returns to the same thing, always returns to this clear, beautiful blue sooner or later. So effortless whole. Volcanoes erupt, forests burn, the sky is not burned. Your mind can be like that. Forests burn right now. Volcanoes erupt. But your mind doesn't have to be burned. Your mind has that nature, that Buddha nature, that is effortless and free and untainted. You just have to let those the mechanisms of clinging release and return to that clear blue openness, boundless and vast. Tornadoes, hurricanes, typhoons, planets collide. The sky accommodates. And this is something I try to tell people frequently, is that your practice, because now we're talking about practice too, your practice can accommodate anything. Anything. There's nothing that comes up that your practice can't accommodate until it kills you, I guess. And then you have to accommodate it in your next life. But whatever you're experiencing is a part of your practice. I interviewed a couple of people last week, one on Thursday and one on Friday for the podcast. Very, very different people in many ways, and yet it has some real interesting common, points of view about things. One of them is a woman roughly my age, I think, same general age group, a little younger than me. She was married to Albert Ellis, who was the father of one of the fathers of modern psychology. He developed rational emotive behavior therapy, which took the idea that there are thoughts that lead to suffering and there are thoughts that lead to freedom, and said, let's develop the thoughts that lead to freedom and leave behind the thoughts that lead to suffering, which is, the Buddha said that too. There's a discourse where he was talking about being a bodhisattva, on his path. And he said, there came a time when I realized that some of my thoughts led to a bad end and some of them led to a good end. And said, why don't I abandon those, release those, let go of those that lead to suffering and stress? And why don't I develop those that lead to freedom and happiness? And then 2,500 years later, right in the 1950s, this psychologist figures that out all over again and starts doing it in a therapeutic way. But anyway, his widow, Debbie Jaffe Ellis, let me interview her for the podcast. And I said, tell me about your spiritual life. And she said, well, it's hard to I don't really think of myself as having a spiritual life. My life is my spiritual life, and we went on from there. And I don't know if she even calls herself a Buddhist. It doesn't really matter. I'd rather you practice Buddhism than call yourself a Buddhist, personally. But she had read a lot of books by the Dalai Lama and was really interested in that. And so she and her late husband, Albert Ellis, had explored this intersection between those two things and done some workshops on it and that kind of thing before he passed away. So that's why I was talking to her. And then I talked to a young woman who is for her master's thesis, had interviewed Asian American Buddhists about what it's like to be Asian American Buddhist. And came up with some really interesting thoughts about that. And so, and by the way, the conversation reminded me, I'm frequently reminded, how fortunate I am to have these communities nearby who are that are made up of people who are from a lot of different backgrounds and who practice together really largely, if not entirely, but largely without any sense of, separation according to whether one is Asian or one is not Asian or whatever. It's really quite wonderful. And I think it's very special. And so I hope that those of you who, go to White Sands or who go to the Thai temple where I practiced in places like that, recognize how incredible that is that we have that. But anyway, I asked her, tell me about your spiritual life. And she said, I don't really think of it as a spiritual life, and this is, they're old stories, Zen stories of Zen masters, trying to explain to monks that your life is your spiritual life, that these aren't two separate things, that your practice is your life. One of the famous ones, is that monks asking about enlightenment, and the master says, "Have you eaten?" And he says, "Yes." And he says, "Have you washed out your rice bowl?" That's and so awakening is this realization that our mind is that open, is that able to accommodate what arises, and can be that free. And so opening up and being aware of that and being awake to that, that's really what our practices should be about. And, of course, there's a lot more to it, than just letting stuff go. But that's a great big part of it, letting things move through the mind without leaving tracks. I was talking about mindfulness somewhere recently, and I started thinking, you've heard my story about, mindfulness as a motorcycle ride around the Ormond Loop. Probably, I'm not going to repeat it now because most of you have already heard it. But I was kind of thinking about Florida and this part of Florida, and those of you who don't live here, there's a big river that comes through this part of Florida. It's about 2 miles that direction, actually, from where I am. It's called the St. Johns River, and it comes down from Jacksonville. It actually comes up to Jacksonville from south central Florida, south of where I am. And on its way, it flows through a number of lakes. And some of them are really, really big, beautiful lakes, like Lake Jessup, which is full of alligators, and Lake Monroe, I used to live across from Lake Monroe. It's a gorgeous lake. And then not too far from me, there's Lake Beresford. And then up that way, there's Lake George. And, it flows through all of those things. And so I was thinking about how if you were none of these lakes are necessarily, none of these lakes hold on to what flows through them. Just like you don't have to hold on to anything that flows through your consciousness. Things arise when you're meditating. You don't have to cling to it. You can let it go and not be touched by it. But if you were like I had a conversation once with a naturalist who was talking about the St. John's and the importance of it as a body of water. It was at the time when the river was being considered as an exceptional waterway, and it got that designation. It's somehow, if you were one of the people who are sort of trying to guard the quality of that, some things you just let flow through. Certain things you might kind of direct in certain ways so that it created a certain kind of environment. And in the same way with your mind, you can create a certain kind of environment in your mind that allows healthy things to flourish. Whereas things that are pollutants, you try to let those get through, filter them out, get rid of them. You don't want that stuck. You don't want that stuck in your mind, hanging around. And so you can actually improve the quality of a lake by what you let flow through it and what you encourage and develop by way of wildlife and plants and things like that. And you do the same thing when you develop your heart. Let certain things go, let others develop. So anyway, that's kind of what I wanted to talk to you about tonight. This beautiful poem. I encourage you, if you're thinking about things to read, that's a good book, Essential Chan Buddhism. So are there any questions, anything that you'd like me to discuss? By the way, another thing that happened last week is that the dogs were very, very active. And I made a remark, or somebody made a remark about how the video would probably go viral. I think it was Jeff. It said something about how the viewership would go up. So I happened to look at last week's video, and so I'm not unhappy with the viewership here. I started doing this to stay in touch with my community, so I'm not trying to get famous or anything. But I noticed that, so like a typical, like right now there's 8 people on. By tomorrow, there'd probably be another 8 people or so that have come back and watched it that weren't able to be here tonight. And usually over time they'll build up, maybe 20, 30, 40. So I noticed there were already 56 views yesterday. When I checked this, something like 56 views of that video. And I know the Dharma talk wasn't that great. So it must have been the dogs. So I'm trying to figure out, is there a way I can incorporate them into services consistently? Because, it'd be, if people are liking it that much. But anyway, I'm just kidding. So if there are no questions or anything, we will close. And thank you very much for coming. And I hope to see you, those of you who are coming on Thursdays, I hope to see you in the Zoom room tomorrow. And I will be at White Sands this Sunday, and then I won't be there next Sunday. So that's my plan. All right. Thank you for being here. I look forward to seeing you again soon.